So I must ask, first of all, where is Marna? Marna! Sorry. Marna started Girls on the Run here in Little Rock. How many years ago was that? 14 years ago. And it has since faded, but I have not seen you since I came here to train you that long ago. So a lot's changed since then. So thank you so much for having me. I'm like a little bit nervous. I don't know why. Maybe because the name like Clinton or President is attached to this or something. I don't know. So I'll loosen up in only a brief period of time, especially after having lunch with some of the students here. Like if this had been in existence when I was in my 20s, I'd have been here, I think. I don't know that I had enough of myself together to be here, but it's an amazing, amazing place. So thank you. So I'm going to share with you like why I started Girls on the Run and just the story of it. And my invitation to you is, I think probably my story is universal just to the human condition in general. And it's not necessarily completely gender related, although I am a girl. And a lot of it is about growing up a girl, but I invite the men in the room to also explore some of their gender stuff as I launch into the story. But I do want to start with a story about my daughter Helen is now 14. You can say your prayers for me now. But she's 14, and she's actually a really, really empowered, amazing spirit. But when she was about 4, I was getting ready for work, and I've kind of always been a tomboy, and I don't do a whole lot. I'm a very low-maintenance person. I actually put on a skirt for you today, and I don't wear them very often. And I was getting ready for work, which was like in the bathroom doing whatever it is that I do, and I heard this huge noise coming down the hall. And it was like this bam, bam noise, and I peer around the hall, and here comes the goddess Helen. Now Helen is 4 years old at the time, and she comes marching into the bathroom, and she's got a boa around her shoulders. She has this amazing pantsuit that she's pulled together. I don't know where she got it. She has sunglasses perched up on her head, this purse, and clippy-clop shoes, like the kind you get at Walmart. Now, I want you to know I did not purchase any of these items for her, so I'm a little concerned about where she got them. But anyway, she comes marching into the bathroom, and she stands in front of the mirror, and this is what I see. She's like, and then she says, you know, I just love myself. And I was like, well, first of all, I've learned that part of being human means there are periods of my life where I like really love myself, like I am awesome, fantastic. And then there are other times where I'm kind of in self-doubt. I mean, like that's normal. And I think I was in a period of self-doubt at this time, so I figured I might learn from the goddess Helen what wisdom she could share with me. So I was like, so tell me about that, girl. What do you love about yourself? And so this is what I hear. Helen, by the way, means ray of light. So anyway, she's in the mirror and she goes, she's looking like for the first time at herself. I love my eyes. I love my mouth. And then the next thing that she says, which I haven't heard that many women say, and if you've said it lately, please find me. She goes, I love my belly. And then she says, you know, and she paused for a minute, and then she said, you know, I love my heart too. And I realized that Helen was describing in 4-year-old language this whole experience of being human, this sort of combination of all of this human stuff, the body, the experience, with what drives us internally, which is heart and spirit. And there I was in this glorious moment, able to experience the union of those in one moment with a 4-year-old who was teaching me so much and continues to teach me so much. So my story starts in 1971. So I was 11, okay? And I know probably you're figuring out the math right now. She's either 51 or 52. So I'm 52. And I was going to a public school in Charlotte, North Carolina, and my parents moved me over to a private school, which in and of itself was not a huge deal, no big deal, except that there was something different about this school, and I couldn't have articulated the difference. I just know there was something different. So about 3 weeks into the school year, they made this announcement that we'd have to run the mile for PE. Now, I was one of 3 new students. I was kind of invisible. It was sort of one of those pathetic things of being the only child sitting at the cafeteria table all by yourself, or with the 2 other new girls. So when they made this announcement that we'd have to run the mile for PE, I was like completely psyched, because I was no longer going to be Molly, the invisible girl. I was going to be Molly, the runner girl, right? And I would have this like identity, I would be something other than just nothing. So this was 1971. I show up for the mile. This is the president's fitness test, right? Remember, we used to do all the stretching and the running. And I show up for the test, and if you are 45 and over, you will appreciate what I'm getting ready to share, because this was pre-Title IX, we had to wear uniforms. Now, those of you under 45, you're lucky, because when you did PE in high school, you got to wear gym shorts and t-shirts. We had to wear these one-piece prison suits, okay? They were awful. Guys didn't have to wear them, girls did. So we called it the greenie at my school. So basically what you did was you stepped into it, and then you'd snap it up, and it was kind of like a big potato sack with elastic here. And the arms of it were usually wide open to reveal all your fabulous girlness. And so we would, try to cover that up. And we might roll them up a little bit because they went down to your knees. So anyway, I had on my greenie, my tube socks, and my tree-torn sneakers. And Ms. Miller yells, "Go." And I take off, and I'm on the dirt track at Charlotte Country Day School, and I am running, and I am like in the space, and I'm like just so happy, and I'm coming around first lap, I'm moving into first place, which mattered at the time. It doesn't. The older I get, the less being in first place definitely doesn't matter anymore. But anyway, I was running lap 2. I'm moving and feeling so joyful when there was a huge hole on this track. And of course, I stepped in it, launched into a full, beautiful body slam on the gravel there on the track, and sprained my ankle. So I came back to the PE teacher, and I said, I can't go on anymore. Like, I'm hurt. And if I had told you this story 12 years ago, I would have told you what Ms. Miller, the teacher, said this to me. "Well, why don't you just sit here while all the other girls finish?" What's interesting is I'm not sure if that's what she really said. As I've grown older, I've realized that so much of what I thought occurred in my past was simply the interpretation of it at that particular time and age. So I don't know that that's what she said, but that is what I heard. I think probably what she said was, "Molly, honey, why don't you sit here and we'll get some ice for that," or something like that. But that isn't what I heard. What I heard was this sort of patronizing, "Why don't you sit here while the other girls finish?" And that is this place we call the girl box. And it happens to girls around middle school, where really no matter what is being shared with them or said to them, what they hear is, "I'm not good enough." So, it could be that they're actually being told that, but it's also sort of their interpretation. So I stepped into this girl box around 6th grade, and being from the South, and I've learned that being Southern is a big deal. Like being in the South in the 70s carried with it a whole host of gender stereotypes that other parts of the world didn't have to deal with. But being, oh gosh, you had to be a certain size. You had to kind of dumb yourself down. You certainly had to have blonde hair. And I laughed that I have not let go of that one. And you will know that I have fully arrived when I no longer spend the money on that. I'm getting close, but I'm not there. So I stepped into the girl box. And at the time, if you want to think about this, there was no alternative. Like, this is just what girls did. You just went in. So my mom, when she was about 50, and she seemed like really old, started running. And this was like really weird for a 50-year-old lady in the 70s to just go run. Like either we ran, there was no purpose, right? She wasn't training for another sport. She just went to run. And I remember, and to give you a portrait of my mom, she was like 5'8", and her hair made her 6'2". Okay, so if you all have an idea of what that looks like, it was fabulous. And she would set off on these morning runs, and she would go at like 5:30 in the morning because she didn't want the neighbors to see her. And I will never forget, she'd wear, these polyester collared shirts with her golf skirt and her little socks with the little balls on the back, and she'd go run and then she'd come back. And I began to witness something. My mother began to get her voice. Now I don't know, there was lots of things going on. My mother was also getting sober. She was also kind of finding who she was. But one thing I do remember, again, perspective, right? At age 14, I just remember how much the woman sweat. And it was like nothing I had ever seen in my entire life. She would come back, she'd be like cooking breakfast, and there would be pools of this stuff like on the kitchen floor. And I thought that was kind of weird and wonderful and odd. And one morning she said, would you like to go for a run with me? And I thought, well, sure, I'd like to do that. Like it seemed mysterious somehow there in the dark in the morning, before anybody else was out. So the two of us started running. And, I can think about that and I can feel it again. It was like right there before the sunrise and before the birds would begin their day's symphony and our feet would be in sync. And it was almost like meditative, and there was this mantra of our breath together in unison, and we didn't have to say a word, and to be sort of one with another person. I mean, that's what running gave me. And it also gave me a sanctuary or a clear space away from a lot of the negative self-talk and a lot of the negative exterior I had taken on as my own. And I have found that still to be true for me, that running does that. I've also, as I've aged, discovered other ways to find that, like meditation or yoga or journaling and all those other things, but running was my first experience in that space. So the other thing that happened around the age of 15, well, if you took a portrait of my family and you looked at us, we would all look like me. We were rather, skinny, athletic, very intense looking people. And if you took a lineage of us, you'd see all these athletes and you'd see a lot of alcoholics, okay? Those two things don't go together very well, by the way. So when I was about 15, I was at my friend Beth's house, and her parents were out for the evening, and there was this cabinet off in the corner of the living room that was calling our name. It doesn't help that we were listening to Boston. So if you know who Boston is, you can kind of set the stage. So we went over there, we mixed up a few drinks and a few things, and about 2 hours later, I called Robbie Baynard, and I told Robbie that I loved him. And Robbie didn't know who I was. Like, Robbie went to the heathen public school, right? And I had liked Robbie for a very long time. And after conversing with him, he knew who I was for sure, and so did all his friends. But therein begins this, this internal conflict between the spirit girl, that really strong, empowered girl that was discovered often while running, with that human girl, the one that's trying so hard to figure out the human rules, right? I mean, how do I play this game? How do I be what this world wants me to be and at the same time honor the spirit? And these two things, rather than working in unison towards a common good or a common goal, they were in conflict. So I was either in one space or the other, but somehow could never manage to bring them to union. And so I was either running and competing at a very elite level and feeling very strong and empowered as a pretty good triathlete, or I was the party girl, depressed, seeking fulfillment in the right man or the right job, and it was endless. You know what I'm saying? It just kept going and going. So July 6, 1993, I was 32, I hit bottom. And the alcoholism had basically won out. So I called my sister, Emily, who is still my spiritual muse. She's 13 years older than me and just an amazing, amazing woman. And I told her that I had one of two choices. I was either going to move to California, which is the geographic cure, like maybe if I change where I live, I'll be happy. I mean, I had tried other things like changing boyfriends or jobs, and none of it was working. Or I'm going to kill myself. So, Emily, big sister, which choice should I pick? And my sister had a long pause on the other end of the phone. And then the first thing she said was, "Don't move to California, it sucks, I've lived there." Probably not a response that I had expected, but I know that she was kind of going through the Rolodex in her head, like, what do I say, what do I say? She consequently moved back to California, so if you're from California, it doesn't really stink, But then what she said, which is probably, I've used it so many times, both in business and with my own kids and in my own life. She said, "Molly, just trust me, this too shall pass." And so for whatever reason, I'd probably been told that numerous times, through difficult situations, I heard her. And so I hung up the phone and I just fell asleep where I was. I was staying with a friend. And the next day was July 7th, 1993. And I called in sick. At this point, I had a master's in social work. I was serving as a hostess in a restaurant. I was kind of floundering, trying to figure it out. And I called in sick. And I decided to go for a run. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it had been a very long time since I'd run. And I put on my running clothes, and there was this huge thunderstorm off in the distance, like massive, massive black clouds out there. And you know how the sky turns that funny shade of yellow almost, and the wind and small little mini tornadoes on the pavement. And I thought, I shouldn't go, like it's dangerous. But I call them winks from the universe. It's sort of like these sudden glimpses of one's own divinity, right? And at that moment, I don't know, it's like all the noise, the should nots and should people suddenly quieted down. And there was this one voice that said, "If you need to go, go." And so I descended the stairs of the apartment where I was staying, and I started this run. And I can remember feeling this almost sense of anticipation throughout the run. And I got to mile 5, and I know exactly where it was. It was at the corner of Kenilworth and East Boulevard in Charlotte. Should you ever be there, there's an awesome Starbucks. And it was right there where suddenly I became incredibly conscious of my physical presence. Like I could feel the sweat literally as it left my pores. I could feel it on my body as it fell down, and I could feel the weight of my ponytail as it tugged behind me. And it's almost as if I could feel the earth meet my feet. And there was this period of about 8 paces where I have no other language to give it other than I just went into this space that I call nothingness, no thingness. And for about 8 paces, I wasn't a woman, I wasn't an alcoholic, I wasn't a divorced person, I wasn't a failure, I wasn't fabulous either. I was just no thing. And it was like, I can still feel the chill bumps now as I speak of it. It was like amazing to not have any single limitation, right? No word could contain the brilliance of what this was. And so I kind of came out the other side and I was like, whoa, what's that about? I knew that I could never go back. It took me years and years to be able to come up with the words to articulate it, and I'm sure in another 10 they'll be different again. But I walked home, and I went to my first 12-step meeting that night, and the rest has been history. What began to happen, which was really cool, was suddenly I started receiving books from people, and I don't know why. I don't know if it looked like wow, you look like girl advocate person, but I suddenly started receiving all these books on girls and resiliency and empowerment. And there was a very popular book back then called Reviving Ophelia. And it was the first book in a series that started this whole gender conversation. And I got the book and I couldn't read it. It was so dark. Like I made it through the first chapter and I'm like, none of this, we got to figure out a solution. So I began to work on the Girls on the Run curriculum. And, you know, it was not a very strategic thing. I basically wrote out the first series of lessons, the content, the chapters on a few pieces of paper, and as I wrote it, I began to realize that something like beautiful was happening, but it didn't really capture its own life until once I began the program. So I went to Charlotte Country Day where I had my spill, and I went to the after-school coordinator and I said, all right, I'd like to do this thing. It's called Girls on the Run. Even the name of it sounded funny. You know, it didn't flow. Girls on the Run. And it's going to empower girls, and it uses running. Like, I didn't even have the words yet. And I'll never forget the after-school coordinator looked at me, and he's a friend of mine, but these were his exact words. He goes, "Aw, that sounds cute." And I can remember, like, thinking, like, cute? This is my life, man. Like, I went to the depths of hell for this. Like, you know, and then in a brief, fleeting moment became the bigger vision, which was, no. You don't seem to understand here, mister. This is going to eliminate the objectification of women from around the world and end all sexism. That's all. But I didn't have those words. Like, they weren't there yet, nor did I have the courage, like, to, you know, to actually think that you could end those things or that you could change the world. Like, people, you know, you're crazy if you talk like that, right? Not really, but, you know, I was thinking that way. So I'm sure I just went back into the default mode, which is good Southern girl or whatever, and I probably went, it is cute. Now can we do it? You know, and he said yes. So 13 little girls showed up, and I will tell you that if you are still seeking what it is that you're supposed to do on the earth, the moment Adelaide walked up to me and put her hand out and said, "Hi, I'm Adelaide. Nice to meet you," I knew, you know, in addition to birthing my own 2 kids, why I was put on the earth. And it was to serve the Adelaides of the world. So, sorry. I love my work. Can you tell? So, the idea of the curriculum, what happens is it's a 12-week or 10 to 12-week program that uses running as a vehicle to helping girls connect to that inner voice. So there is a curriculum. The first third of the curriculum is all about helping the girls identify their values. So rather than tell them what to think or believe or be, we help them come to that conclusion on their own. And what's great about that is not everybody believes the same things are important. So it's really fantastic when you can get a lot of third graders conflicting with one another and then having a very open dialogue about that. There's a lot of joy in that, and we celebrate all of those differing opinions. Second third of the curriculum is all about team building. So one of my favorite lessons is you don't have to be friends with everybody. Like, this is a concept that I did not realize until I was in my mid-40s. You know, like, oh my God, not everybody's gonna like me, you know. And this was something that a lot of little girls don't know. So it's okay to choose your friends, you know? It's okay to choose your friends. We talk a lot about gossip, how to stop a gossip chain, how to be a good listener. Bullying, you know, certainly when I started Girls on the Run, cyberbullying and all of that stuff didn't even exist. And so we've constantly tweaked the curriculum to remain relevant. And then the last third of the curriculum is all about, now that I'm all empowered with my sisters, we're going to get out there and change the world. So they identify something within their community that they're a little bit frustrated with. It could be, for many kids, it might be animals, so they do some projects for the Humane Society. It could be that someone at their school is dealing with an illness. They raise money for her or him. I will share with you one of my favorites. This was when I was coaching. I had a group of girls that wanted to do holiday greeting cards for a retirement community. So if you give an 8-year-old piece of construction paper and some glue and other things, the piece of construction paper weighs like 5 pounds when they're done with it, right? You know, they're this thick. So I get all the holiday greeting cards and I'm reviewing them and the girls are sitting there and I'm like, wow, oh, this is fantastic, beautiful work. Now for a retirement community, I get to this one card and this little girl has an angel on the cover and it says, Happy Holidays. And then you open it and it says, May you rest in peace. Like, right on, girl. Yeah. I mean, you know that the right woman got that, right? She at her home, and she laughed her backside off, right? She was like, oh, this is funny. This is funny. So the community service project, and all the while these running games are woven into this curriculum. So they're never just being lectured to. So they're experiencing the lessons through running. So at the very end, they all go do a 5K together. And to say, I would wish that I could say they all run a 5K, but I should say they do a 5K, because when you're 8 and there is a dragonfly that comes across the course, it becomes very important to catch that dragonfly somewhere and carry it with you the entire 5K. So, you know, the idea is just to cover the distance. There are the more competitive kids that run their little hearts out, but what I've noted is all of our races, the girls get the number 1. So those that are competitive can honor and celebrate that by like kicking their little fannies across the course. They get to the end and then they go back and always help out those that may need a little more assistance. So it becomes very much of a sisterhood sort of thing. I did want to share with you something that happened in this past year that's just of note, and it will provoke, I hope, some interesting conversation when you leave. It's just something to ponder and think about. So one of our lessons is on the media and some of the negative messages that girls get in the media, and I was doing a guest visit with a group of girls in my hometown of Charlotte, and I had an advertisement that I was showing, and we were critiquing the ad. You know, what is it trying to sell you? Well, it's trying to sell you this product, but if you use this product, you're suddenly going to be very sexy and have a boyfriend. You know, and it was something like mascara or something, you know. And I'm holding it, and this little girl stops for a minute, and she goes, now, Molly, I guess I'm not understanding. If you tell me that I'm beautiful just the way I am, and I don't need all of that stuff, then why are you wearing makeup? Now, I didn't like that question because I didn't have an answer. The truth is, and it seems so unimportant, right? It seems like, what? But I couldn't answer her honestly. So, because I've been putting it on, I didn't wear it frequently or a lot, but I did wear it, you know, actually I wore it more frequently than not. I have been wearing it since I was 13. So I decided to go onto what I named it the Naked Face Project. I basically went to the beauty desert for 60 days. And what that means is, if you all know who Pat is on Saturday Night Live, basically, I was Pat, which means I didn't use any beauty products, no shaving, no makeup, no hair products, no blow drying of the hair, no heels, no skirts, nothing, for 60 days to just see what would happen. So I went about my regular daily life, you know, speaking, media stuff, everything. And I have to tell you that it was very, I can't even think of the word. I'm still traumatized from it. It was very liberating. So a couple of things that I'd just like to share with you that occurred from that. One is that sometimes being a leader or a servant leader means listening and responding and confronting our own fears. And I had no clue at all what kind of fear I was confronting till I launched. And the fear was less around the makeup use, it was more around the media's response to this. So for 16 years, I had been doing really good empowerment work, right? For these 60 days, I had probably 20 times more media interest in this than the work I had been doing. And I think that was like alarming to me. It really bothered me that I'm getting interviewed on New Zealand's Good Morning America about not wearing makeup, and no questions were ever asked about the work that I did to empower girls. Now, I don't know what that says exactly, except that I have a lot of work left to do. And like what I'm doing with the program that I'm involved in is significant, and it like fired me up even more. I will share with you just one really funny story. So, and it's just humbling, and I don't know why I feel like sharing it, but I'm gonna. And I have not spoken about the Naked Face Project much because it really seems so stupid, right? Who gives a flip? You're not wearing, so I was speaking at something in San Francisco, and I was flying home, and this was like day 40. Okay, so we're pretty in, I'm feeling pretty comfortable, I'm thinking I'm all that, right? I got this thing nailed. And I'm in the security lot at the airport, and I have on a jacket and a little camisole underneath. And I'm coming up to security, and the lady says, "You'll need to remove your jacket." And I was like, "This jacket?" She's like, "Yes, that jacket." So now remember, no shaving, okay? So I take the jacket off, I put it in the bin. And then there are two security lines, correct? There's the one that you walk through that, you just get to walk through, and then there's the other one where you lift your arms. So I'm walking through the one you just walk through, right? I'm just like, "Oh yeah, that's mine, girl." So I'm walking through, and she goes, "No, ma'am, you need to go through that one." And I was like, "That one?" She was like, "Yes." And so I get in there, and I'm thinking, okay, I speak in front of thousands of people and tell them, like, I've struggled with alcoholism and all my demons, but I am really worried about what security lady is going to think about the garden under my armpits. Okay? So I get up there, and she, you have to, I'm like this. And she goes, "Ma'am, you'll need to get those a little higher." And I was like, "These?" So I'm a little higher, and then she was so mad at me. I like, the high maintenance lady in the line. She said, "All the way, ma'am." And I was like, and I'm sitting there just laughing out loud at myself, going, "Oh my God, this is so vulnerable," right? But I walked away from that thinking about like all of the ridiculous shame and wounds and all of that women struggle with on any level, right? I mean, if it's not that, maybe it's, something else. And that the number of emails and cards I got from women who'd struggled with so much around their appearance and their worth, it was probably, in hindsight, one of the most empowering things I ever did. And what it did was eliminate, I just don't judge a woman for, I've eliminated all judgment of women and where they are on that journey, you know what I mean, to find themselves. So in closing, and then I'll take questions, I did want to share with you one story about a girl in the program. There's so many. So this was several seasons ago. I was still coaching. And I have 14 girls in my group, and we're all crisscross applesauce first day together. And we all say our name and an adjective that describes us, like I'm always Magical Molly. And we're just getting to know each other, and we're going around the circle. And I got around to this little girl that was directly across from me. And she just shook her head and looked to the ground. And one of the other girls goes, "Oh, that's just Shakira, she never talks." And I was like, "You know what, girl, I'm just glad you're here. You just keep coming back." And we just proceeded around the circle. And on this particular day, this little girl stayed way off to the side. Like she didn't want to participate. And the assistant coach stayed way off with her. And so the following day, we come together. It's twice a week, Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday. So we came together, and this little girl got a little closer, but she still wasn't participating. The third day, She's now beginning to participate, but she's not speaking nor touching any of the other girls. And then the fourth day, she's now engaged, but she's not speaking. So I went to the school counselor and I said, all right, I could use some help here. Like, tell me about Shakira, what's going on with her? And they said, well, Shakira's new to our school. If you look closely about her calves and her arms, you'll see the scars from the cigarette burns. And this little girl wore glasses that would dim in the sunlight because her pupils were non-reactive to daylight. And the assumption is that she'd just been in dark spaces for so long that her eyes hadn't learned to acclimate to bright light. And she had what's called selective mutism, which means her vocal cords could work. But my only guess is, and I can build a story around anything, but my guess is that when she spoke, it either got her burned or put in a closet or, just somehow not cared for. I do want to, though, say that part of the process in our work is to also have compassion for the people that did it to her, and to recognize that even as horrible and heinous as that was, it didn't start there, right? It started somewhere else. And so, anyway, so this little girl had seen a lot in her life, and I had the privilege to be her coach. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm not sure I'm equipped to handle this. But then, as I do with all things, I just think that, I really believe that we're just given exactly what we need right when we need it. So she kept coming. And I noticed that over the course of that 12 weeks, this little girl began to have that light that was there, but it was just dimmed, began to sort of sparkle and come out. And when she was right with the world, this little girl would float on that asphalt. And I've been there, like when you're really in flow with things, things go right. And when she was angry with the world, her little feet would slam the pavement and her arms would like fight the air. And so on the last day of the program, I put these little girls into a circle and we all put our arms around each other. And I said, all right, ladies, let's say one word to describe our Girls on the Run experience. Of course, my hope being that Shakira might say one word. So the first girl says awesome. Another little girl said fun. I do remember the third grader of the bunch said supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, because that is one word, because it's hyphenated. And we got around to Shakira, who took in this huge deep breath, and she looked to every girl in that circle. And it's really funny, because I remember the other girls wouldn't look at her. It's like they didn't want to put any pressure on her, right? And she's deep breath, and then she just exhaled, and the next girl picked up, and around we went. And I can remember in my own mind thinking, oh, I've failed. I have failed. And I noted that not a single one of the other girls thought anything of it. It's like, oh, that's just Shakira, it's okay. And I wonder what goes on in our minds that doesn't go on in the mind of kids. In other words, there's something there to be learned from them. So the following day we have our banquet, and it's where we get all the kids from a certain school together, and it's like a covered dish or something, and we give out awards. And the awards we give at Girls on the Run are like the Sweat Goddess Award, or the Runs with a Red Face Award, or something like that. It's never most improved or fastest. So Shakira wasn't there. I had all my certificates ready to go. We're eating dinner when she comes flying in at like 60 miles an hour with her foster parents. And she has a seat, and a few minutes later, I begin the award ceremony. So now her certificate's on the bottom, and I begin calling all the girls up, and they each get a moment in the sunlight, like, oh, I give you the such and such award, and you talk a little bit about each girl. And I had all 13 of her teammates up when I call up Shakira, and up she marches. And this little peanut of a being was very tiny from years of malnourishment. Her hair, she looked a little bit like Junie B. Jones, just kind of messy, and Umbro shorts that were up to here, and she just comes marching up. And I say, all right, girl, I give you the Grand Communicator Award. And, she looks at me herself a little puzzled, and I was like, because you communicate, my friend, in ways that adults have forgotten. Like you communicate with that sparkle in your eye and just the way you move through space and who you are. You're it. And that little girl pulled out of her pocket a card, and I learned she was late because she had forgotten this card. And she handed me that card. And the one thing that I know about my work, and see, I can go there now, is that when I am unified, that spirit and human, when they are in a unified space, I go to that state of nothing again. And I think it happens so more frequently now, but it was happening with her. It was like the rest of the room ceased to exist. And there we were. It wasn't like a child and an adult. It was richer than that. And I took the card and I read it. And I handed it back to her and I said, all right, girl, will you read this to me? And that little girl took that card, and I will never forget, she began to shake. Just shake. And when you're really little and you haven't eaten a lot over the course of your life, you don't have a lot of muscle, and you're just, and she'd look up and she'd look down and she'd look up, and then there just comes that absolute moment of complete knowing and surrender, and you're safe. And she knew that she was, and I know that she felt what I felt, and she read the card out loud to 60 people in the cafeteria at Beverly Woods Elementary. And what she said was, dear Molly, the word I wanted to say yesterday at Girls on the Run was love. Your friend Shakira. And what was fascinating was, again, I don't know what it means yet. I haven't wrapped words around it. A lot of the adults were crying, and they didn't even know why, right? But the kids were completely elated. There wasn't a single tear on a single child's face. As a matter of fact, this one girl named La Portia that weighed at least 100 pounds more ran over, grabbed Shakira like this, and Shakira's facing outward, and she didn't know what else to do with all that joy, so she just started running around the cafeteria, and like this, and they were just, woo, like this, just leaping, and I thought, yeah, like, what is that, So there is one other very enriching, just let me share it. There's one other thing that's really good. So I was walking with, visiting a group of kids, this was years ago, and I was walking a lap with every girl because, it's a little bit of one-on-one time, and we're walking a lap, and I'm holding this little girl's hand named Madeline. And we get about halfway through the track. We haven't said a word to each other, which is a little awkward, for me, not for her. And then I say, well, Madeline, what is it? Like, what's this about? You and I have had all this time together. It was all of 2 minutes, but it seemed like forever, right, when you're not talking. What is that about? What is that about that we have this time together? And Madeline just doesn't even stop. She goes, well, you see, Molly, it's like this. And then she uses the word God, which I'm going to use because that is her word, but I invite you to replace it with what works for you, like higher power or spirit or feather, whatever works for you. She says, well, you see, Molly, it's like this. God has an idea, but he has a problem. He needs to get the idea down to earth. So what he does is he wraps a body around the idea, and then he sends it here to be born. Now, since the idea within each of us is so big, it might take lots of people to come together to get the really big idea out. And that is, of course, how you get your gifts and your talents. It's God's tools to help you get the idea from inside of your body out before your body dies. 9. She was 9 years old. And I've laughed, I've told that story, but I swear to you, I didn't know whether to cry or faint or pray or, hold a snake. I just didn't know what to do. What do I do with this, But what I do know is what's so cool is where she completed the story. And I remember just looking at her like, oh, wow, honey, that was exactly where Ms. Miller said to me. It was on the same track. where the PE teacher said to me, Molly, why don't you sit there and we'll get some ice for that later. And I don't know what that means either, but I just do think that it's just, we constantly get the chance for a do-over, over and over and over, until we finally bring to union all of it. So, thank you. Thank you. Does anybody have questions?
Thank you. We have some time for some questions. If you would raise your hand, and then we'll get the microphone to you. Caleb?
Thank you so much for coming. I was just telling my classmates, like, we're back here in awe. I'm Kayla Brooks, and I'm a student here at the Clinton School. And I was wondering if you all do any partnering with other organizations. For instance, are you aware of Black Girls Run and their initiative? So I was just wondering about that.
I love Black Girls Run. And yes, in all of our cities where there is a chapter, we've gotten pretty well connected with them. I will tell you that we still struggle to find women of color to coach. So if you are affiliated with that at all, if you know, just, we need you. We need more girls that look like our girls. Do you know what I mean? And more coaches that look like our girls. That's awesome.
Yes, we have a question right here.
If you or Marna have any advice on barriers that you've received from maybe administration or perhaps parents being hesitant about letting their children participate?
And you know, Marna, how long ago did you stop doing Girls on the Run? It's been a while. It was just, Marna came on when people were still like learning about it on my living room floor. I mean, that's how long ago you were involved. Now we've got a whole system involved. The biggest barriers, I think, and actually there aren't many anymore because we've gotten such a reputation. You know what I mean? In the beginning, there were concerns about running kids, although there's a lot of research that says that up to 3 miles is certainly safe. I do have concerns with what I'm seeing now, which is more and more kids running half marathons and marathons. That does concern me, but we stop it at, you know, 3.1 miles. Other barriers may be that, you know, we don't offer a boy version. Sometimes we hear that, what about the boys? And I tell people we did try a boys program, but ours is so gender specific. I mean, it is, you know, when you look at the curriculum, there's no way, a boy would not get it. I mean, he just wouldn't want to do it. And they didn't. They dropped out. Like, you know, we were talking and communing too much. I mean, the boys dropped out. So that's, I mean, there really haven't been that many barriers. And then, of course, raising funds to get it started. That's always yeah.
Nicole?
Can you speak a little bit about what do you need in order to start a chapter or a council in your city?
Yep. We need a group of committed individuals that are in a group of committed individuals. And then we provide, we're a franchise model. Now, I didn't get into the business side of this because that is like, makes me want to go, not be here. And I've fortunately surrounded myself with people that love strategic plans and are very left brain, you know, love that stuff. We're a franchise model. So we need a group of committed folks within an area to learn all about how to start a nonprofit, because basically that's what you're doing, is you're starting your own 501c3 here, getting funding, establishing a board, all of those things. But we walk all of our people through that now, which is great. Yeah.
Microphone coming right there.
I actually have put in my intent to start a council here. So my name's Jenny Paul. Yeah.
Okay, good.
My application is due February 1st of next year. So if anyone is interested, find me and give me, I've started with a great group of people. They're all here. We've got a...
Say your first name again?
Jenny.
And who's with Jenny? Who are the crazy women and possible men? Oh, yes. Okay.
We've got, you know, right now, really some fundamental fundraising and 501c3. I think she taught a course
in that recently. So
Okay.
all the places where I'm deficient, I feel like I'm getting good people, but we're going to
Totally.
need lots of people. So if anybody would find me afterward.
And this is right here in Little Rock.
Here in Little Rock,
Because this school, after having gone to lunch with some of the students here, those of you that live in Little Rock certainly know how fortunate you are to have this school because, you know, they just give so much to this state. But yeah, you need to get some of these students to help you too.
So
Yeah.
Please find me afterward, or I can give you all my contact information if you want to send me stuff later.
Very cool.
Question right there.
I guess what my question is how do you feel knowing you can help, like, change a life or a point of view of someone?
How do I feel about that? I feel complete joy at that. And you know that I think that everyone is capable of that. Everyone. Like I look at, I mean, and you know, sometimes, oh my gosh, now I will weep. Because I can't believe how big Girls on the Run's gotten. Sorry. I mean, I'll never be able to understand that.
I'm about
I'll
to cry
never-
myself. Liz.
I'll never.
As a father of 2 daughters,
I will-
that's pretty cool.
I'll never be able to understand that, right? But I know that, like, for me, the influence I have, I talk about my 8 feet of space, 8 feet of life. While as big as Girls on the Run has gotten, I still only have influence personally over the 8 feet that I'm in. And I'm very conscious of how I treat the people within that 8 feet of space. Do you know what I mean? So it's a constant. We can always impact those people within that space. And that's how you create change, is we individually impact the 8 feet of space around us. If you get everybody doing that, you've got a whole amazing.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's thank Molly for
Yeah.
this fabulous presentation.